Welcome, Professor. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You hear me well? It's okay?
Yes, it's very good.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome, Dr. David Noor, and welcome to all our viewers. I am Dr. Ali Faris, and this the third episode of Implant Talk. As always, in our Magic Cloud webinars, we bring you high-value lectures designed for the top of pyramid. If we were to divide the field into three levels, the base represents general dentist, and the next level include dentists with general knowledge of implantology, and the top of the pyramid are dentists who are already have knowledge in implantology and looking to further development their expertise. Some may believe that the most important part of implantology is the surgical part, while others may think that the prosthetic part. However, the truth is, the most important part is the planning. It is what ensures that both the surgical and prosthetic parts are carried out with precision. The planning has its own principles, rules, and guidelines that guarantee optimal biomechanical force distribution and good arrangement, leading to outstanding result in FP1 in terms of both aesthetic and functional. I consider Dr. David Noor not only one of the most talented implantologists in this field, but also a true inspiration. Simply looking at his cases and reading his notes can teach you a great. That's why I was eager to have him join us for this event. Dr. David Nouri graduated in dentistry from KU Leuven, Belgium, master in restorative dentistry, 2 years training in oral implantology, 2006-2008. Since 2007, lecturer at KU Leuven Institute of Osseointegration, lectures in oral implantology, full digital workflow, abutment design. He is international speaker in field of oral implantology, researcher, and one of the authors of the book. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for this invitation. For me, it's special because I'm not a big webinar guy, but like Tarek is a good friend. He said you are a friend, so it's why I accepted this. I'm happy to be here. So let us bring you, my friends, to my world about digital planning and how I came to the STAR concept. STAR concept now is a trademark and it's sold to Straman. So let me show you why and how we did it. First thing first, it's very important to understand what's an FP1, what's an FP2, what's an FP3. An FP1 is when you only change the teeth, so you only have the white. An FP2 is when you change the crown and the part of the root. And FP3 is when you have the teeth and the pink, so that's the FP3. So just to be sure, this is not an FP1. If you're talking about FP1, it's not about white, it's about a central teeth who are 10 to 11 millimeters long, with a papilla who is filling 30 to 40% of the crown length, where the zeniths of the crowns are well placed and things like this. That's FP1. On social media, I see a lot of FP2s who are called FP1. It's not because it's white, it's in FP1. So FP1 is only the crowns. FP2 is like this one when you have crowns who are very long, who in fact are FP3s. And FP3s is when you have pink, just to be on the same level about the classification. What is happening when we remove a tooth? You always have a collapse of the tissue, always. So you're going to end up with a loss in horizontal tissue, like the zebra class 1, or in a horizontal tissue, or vertical tissue, like the class 2, or both volumes, vertical and horizontal, that's the class 3. So we know we're always going to have a lack of tissue, so we have to compensate it in the design of the crowns and the temporaries that we make. Otherwise, you're going to end up like a class 3. In fact, it's always an FP3, or you have to have massive tissue grafting. A class 1 and a class 2, you can go to FP1. So it's important to understand the lack of tissue. The question I always asked is why today we have to remove so much bone to place implants. I learned from my dear colleague, Eric van Doren, we call him Papa, that if you do your job well, at least you have to do it twice. So it means you have to do it today and maybe in 20 years. So if today I remove all the bone till under the nose, I place short implants, and in 20 years we have a loss of bone around the implants, what you're going to do? What's happening at that moment is the fact that we cannot place implants anymore, and we have to place remote anchorage. We're going to go zygomas, pterygoids, and maybe it's why today we see a big movement in oral surgery to this type of implants, because maybe 20 years ago we removed all the bone till below the lip line. So today we're going to show you maybe how we can try to avoid this, how we can try to avoid all removing of the bone, and maybe we can win 20 years for the patient. So the first question that we have to raise is, what's the advantage of digital implant dentistry? That's something very fancy nowadays, that we talk about digital planning, but what is the advantage? And the biggest advantage about digital implant dentistry is the fact that you have a design made up front. It's very predictable, and maybe more important, reproducible. What do I mean with reproducible is that we can have a singular design. We can have a teeth design from the beginning till the end. And it's very, very predictable. And today, in the next 45 minutes, 1 hour, I'm going to try to show you how predictable we can be. How can we make these workflows predictable is the fact that in implant dentistry, we have a lot of balls keeping in the air. So we are the prosthodontical dentist, we have a smile design, we have to do data acquisition, we have to plan the implants, we are going to have the planning of the prosthodontics, planning of the guide, surgical part, prosthodontical part, who's going to make the final restoration, and the technician, what is going to do. So the question is nowadays, who is owning the case? Is the dentist placing the implants himself? Is he going to refer the implants to someone else? How are we going to do it? So the question is, how are we going to connect each other to do all these things together? First, we have to make the patient digital. And how do we make this patient digital? We need 4 things. And we need, for example, very important, the clinical picture, because we always have to start with the end in mind. So we have to know where the anterior teeth has to be placed. We need an impression of the teeth to have the positioning of the teeth. So we need or digital or analog. It's whatever you want. We need a cone beam, the bone, and in complex cases, we need motion. And when we have all this data, in fact, we have the avatar of the patient, and especially in Europe with the GDPR, it's a private commission, we need to be very careful what we're going to do with the data. We cannot just have it on a computer, we cannot just to share it, we cannot send it by email. We really have to have it centralized on a software with GDPR approved. And for this thing, I'm using SmileCloud with Frank Florin. When I see implant dentistry digital, I was lucky to be at the University of Leuven in the 2000s, and my first experience with guided surgery was with Novum. What was Novum? It was done by Nobel. It was called a couple of years ago Trifold. It's also relaunched, but it's important to know from where it's coming. And what did we do? We just had to cut down the lower jaw till we had 8 millimeters of bone, and then we placed 1 central implant. And then we had to choose in the jaw was a small, medium, or large. Because there was a prefab bar we can place on this implant. So we had to choose if it was an extra large or an extra small. We didn't have it. So we placed a central implant in the middle of the jaw. We placed drilled to the metal template the second implant, who was maybe in the bone. And the third implant was never in the bone. And on top of this bar, guide, we placed a bar where we did the bite registration, and we did immediate loading. It was called Novum, and it was an immediate loading within the 24 hours. It was very, very before its time. We are talking year 2000. It was prefab. So the bar was pre-made. You have to choose upfront, small, medium, large. You drill the first implant, then you have to drill the second implant following this metal guide, and maybe the third implant would go into the bone. You can understand, when I was in university, these things were not very, let us say, attractive to do. And 1 year later, Professor Van Steenbergen and Professor Kleinenbreugel, they developed Lithorim. What was Lithorim? In fact, nowadays we know it like a materialized guides or the Nobel guide in the past. What was it? It was a tissue-supported, fully dentulous case where you placed 8 implants and the final bridge was made up front. What did we have to do? you had to, because you have discrepancy in the guide, you had expandable abutments. There were abutments, when you screw them in, they become bigger. So to cover the discrepancy about the planning and execution, the abutments became bigger. I can assure you, in all the cases I've seen, no one had a good midline. The plane of occlusion was totally off. The implants were sometimes not in the bone, so I was not very, very keen to do that surgery. So for, let's say, from my graduation from 2006 surgery, 2008 to 2015, for me, I didn't do that surgery. I was one of those guys who said, yes, I can place implants without a guide. Why do I need a guide? And now today I'm going to try to explain you how I did the movement, and I do now 95% guided. And I'm going to try to explain you why and how we do it. But first, why don't we do all guides? Because normally when I lecture, I'm asking in the room, who is doing guided surgery? Or who is agreed that guided surgery is better? 95% of the dentists will raise their hand. And then I ask, who is doing it for every case? And then maybe one or two dentists raise their hand to say, yes, I do it for every case. But if I'm asking you guys, why don't you do for every case guided surgery? Most of the time I receive 4 answers. It's not accurate, also for me. It's too expensive. It takes too much time to plan the implants, and everything's set up front. So it means it's not accurate, it's too expensive, it takes too much time, and I cannot change anything. There are the 4 things that are, at least for me, a big trouble or problems for guided surgery. Now we're going to break it down to explain you why nowadays I do everything guided. So when you talk about accuracy, I don't have the time to explain you everything. I will keep it with design of a surgical guide and the implant surgery. That's the things who is going to give you the best of insight about guided surgery today. If we're talking about guide design, it's a study I did also with Nele van Nassau at the University of Leuven. We took all the types of guides that we had, and we did a literature review, and we saw that the guides were the implants were approximately 1.5 to 2 millimeters from the planned position. So overall, it was not bad. And it's one of these studies where you see all guided softwares nowadays have a safety zone of 1.5 millimeters. But for me, when you look very well, you see the entry point sometimes can deviate from 6.5 millimeters. The apex can be 7 millimeters out of the planned position. If it's 7 millimeters out, it means that the implant is not in the bone anymore. And it's other cases I saw when I did guided surgery for fully dentures cases. Sometimes in one side, the implants were, in my opinion, too palatal, and in the other side, the implants were out of the bone. So a long time, I was for me like, come on, guys, guided surgery, fully dentures doesn't work. Maybe it is like this, maybe not. So, but this study, to be sure, is going to explain you every step, every type of guide, bone guide, supported guide, tissue supported guide, tooth supported, all guides together. But it's not very fair. So let's see what the next study is going to break down between teeth, mucosa, and bone supported. The most important thing to understand in guided surgery, to be accurate, you need to have a good support. And to be sure to have a good support is the teeth. You need the teeth supported guide to be on the safe side. So the first thing first is, if you want to do guided surgery, the first one, go tooth supported. Second thing is, mucosa supported is still much better than bone supported. Nowadays, bone supported guides are better, but most of the time they are bone resection cases. Why? Our comb beams are not very precise. Our intraoral scanner is much preciser, maybe 20 times more precise than our comb beams. A comb beam, depending on the artifacts, have an accuracy of 150 microns. You can imagine if you have the bone with 150 microns higher, so 150 microns are 3 hairs, are higher, the guide will never see it. So it's why the most of the bone supported guides are always in a buckle, and you have to cut the bone just to bring it to the base level. Then it works. But the most accurate guides are tooth supported. So when you see also, you have different type of guides. You can go fully guided. What's a fully guided guide? It's a guide when the implant is going to be placed through the guide itself. We have pilot drill guide. It's when only the drills go through the guide, but not an implant. And free-handed, we all know we go by hand. You see that always, if you go guided and if you want to do all the work to make a guide, always go fully guided. Place the implant fully guided. You are approximately twice as precise as a filer drill. So if you can choose to do a guide, always go fully guided. So now the implant surgery itself. Very important to understand in guided surgery is that you need to use all the bones drills. The first step, if you try to drill on this top of a bone, what's going to happen with the first drill? That's the implant positioning. What's going to happen when you drill? The first drill go like this, or like this of the top of the bone. And what do you hear at that moment? The sound. It's the metal sleeve who is going to give a lot of friction around the drill. What it means that you are already out of accuracy. So it's very important in guided surgery to always first flatten the bone, like a micro bone reduction. And we know it just if you want to drill in a corner, the drill of your hand drill is going to move. It will never be accurate. The first drill in guided surgery is always a bone mill. It's something to flatten the bone. So in fact, you always do a bone reduction. And then on a flat side, you can go in with a drill. You will not move and you will be a much higher accuracy. So you always need to remove the knife edge. What you also know, what's very important also, is about the drill sequence. So you always have to be guided by the sleeves. If you're not guided by the sleeve, you will have like a drill who is going to float into the osteotomy and going to make an osteotomy who is a little bit oval. So always start with a short drill where you have first contact of the drill with the sleeve and then only with the bone. Very important. First with a small drill to go longer and longer and longer. You see it here on the picture. You see a deviation of a short drill in the sleeve and a deviation of a long drill in the sleeve. Imagine that you start with a long drill with not even touching the sleeve. You know you can go very big off. So you will always have a big issue to refine the osteotomy. So always start with the bone mill and with the shortest drill you have. Most of the time, depending on the system, it's a 6 millimeter or the 8 millimeter. You can never, ever skip these drills. Never. So always bone mill and always the shortest drill on sleeve. Very important. When we see it, we see that for sure that guided is much more precise than free-handed. That I will not even discuss. That we know, all of us know this one. But maybe we need to know and to understand that even in guided surgery, we are not very precise. If we have to choose, if we see it, if a system is very accurate and very precise, it's like my son on Fortnite, he always had a headshot. So it's very precise and very accurate. You always will hit the mill. Always, always, always. If something is not accurate but very precise, you will miss the target, but you don't know where, but you will always miss from the same positioning. So it can be 2 millimeters off, and all the implants will be 2 millimeters off and always on the same difference, but you will never anticipate whatever deviations you will have. Then you have something which is very accurate but not precise. So it means you know you're going to be around the target. And in fact, that's our guided surgery. We need to know that we are within the 1.5 millimeter around the planned position. That's very important. If you plan implants, you know you will have 1.5 millimeter to 2 millimeters discrepancy. The not precise, but very accurate. So you know you will be in that deviation. And then you have me on Fortnite, is whatever you do, you will never ever be hitting the center and you will be every time something different. In fact, that's free-handed surgery. So something was very accurate and very precise, that's the goal, but nowadays we don't have it. Maybe with robotics in a couple of years. This one is what we want to avoid. What we want to have is in fact something was very accurate, but maybe not precise. That's nowadays where we are with guided surgery. So the accuracy is quite good. So it cannot be a problem if you are tooth supported. Now we take about planning time. And that's for me, it was the biggest game changer in 2015, is the fact that for me, and we all agree, placing an implant without planning is the fastest and the easiest. So you don't have to plan anything. You just open, you just drill, you close. It's always faster. Free-handed will always be faster than with guides, always. But you will never be in a position you want. Nowadays, if I go free-handed, I'm never happy about my implant position. Always too distal, always too mesial, always too buccal, always too lingual. This is also a study from the University of Ghent, where two new dentists, young dentists, graduate dentists placing implants, partially edentulous, more than 2 implants in the posterior maxilla. And it then for these guys, it took 20 minutes to plan. And when they did the surgery, free-handed, they took 85 minutes. And with a guided surgery, a novice dentist took 40 minutes. So for young dentists, even planning the implants give them more accuracy, and it doesn't take more time. Of course, you are very experienced, you can go much faster with free-handed. But nowadays, what we do for the planning time is, I don't want to do the plannings. I don't have a 20 minutes, so I just upload everything to a service center. And these guys, so I work a lot with the French guy from a digital guide solution. These guys do for me everything. They do all plannings, and I have the software on my computer. I can open it, and in, let us say, in 1 hour, I can review 10 cases. So it takes me 5 minutes for a simple case. For full large, it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have a service center, the time frame is not an issue anymore. So I prefer to go guided. So the time for me was also passed. This is one of my partners who I work a lot with. I like them a lot. Very nice French guys speaking Spanish, and they do all my plannings. Now about too expensive. What's the most expensive in dentistry? What is our part? The most expensive part in dentistry is to redo something. Redo is always the most expensive part. So if you know that if the implant is not in a correct 3D positioning, we compromise the aesthetics, and you have a big higher risk of biological technical complications. So a bigger range of complication, is much easier to understand that the guide who is paid by the patient will reduce your problems. So because if you have to redo, you have to give guarantees to the patient. And if you know that the biggest risk for periimplantitis or problems are malpositioning, using the guide what the patient will pay will give you more accuracy and will give you more trust to don't have problems afterwards that you have to repay from themselves. So it's always better that the patient pays something than you have to pay or we do it for free. So I think we have to go from 90% of execution to 90% of planning. So also very important is that you can have 2 brains, the guide, how it's planned, what you plan, and then you can be very creative. And in this part, I will show you how we cannot have bad days. Enough with data, enough, it's already late. I think even for you guys, it's much later than for me. What are the challenges for all, Nix? First and for all, for me, it was a temporization. Then, how to do the surgery to be sure that the implant bridge, if we agree the screw retain is better, how to put them in a screw retain position. And prosthodontically, for me as a process, how to meet the patient expectations in a predictable way, because you're going to show them something with DSD, and how can you meet their expectation? And the last question is, can we go fully digital? Is it a way to go fully digital? I did a lot of this type of guides, a lot of these guides, stackable guides, guides with pots like this. You see the clickers. Also very nice guide from Digital for All from Spain with Joao Francesca. I do also a lot of guides with this one, with them. But just to be honest, I tried all this type of guides. These guys I really don't like. The pots, the pins who are in the guide, always moving. You don't have any clips. So I'm going to show you what we prefer to do. But for social media, this type of guides, I make them gold. I analyze them in gold. It's beautiful. It's very nice, very complex, very expensive. But metal guides doesn't work for me. Metal guides work very well for bone resection guides. For FP3s, when you want to remove the bone, when you want to have stable, if it's very stable in the bone, it works very well. For FP1, it's much more difficult and too supported for guide. It doesn't work. But even in this picture, you see, you have plastic guide for placing the implants and a metal bar below, and it doesn't fit well. You see it like this, you see it's not fitting. And that's a problem because you have 2 materials, different shrinkage. But you can have beautiful pictures as you see, it's very nice. So it's why in 2016, I came up with a STAR concept. It's a little bit special history about it. I will not go too much in detail. It's not so important, but I'm going to explain you how we can be very predictable in an easy way. In fact, you have 3 versions. In my clinic, 92% of the patients are coming with hopeless teeth that I have to remove. So I have to remove the teeth. 5% of my cases is like the version 2 when you need to do bone resection, that the bone is like this one collapsed. And 3% is fully dentures. So that's the type of guides I do. For today, we're just going to emphasize the 92%, the tooth-supported guides. I will not emphasize the bone resection. I will not emphasize the fully dentures, how we do it. So maybe it's for another time that we can discuss this, or one of my courses. But let's see about STAR concept in 2017. How it started. What does it mean, STAR? It's very simple. It's safe, 3 acceptable roots. You can call it secure, 3 acceptable retention, or you can call it soft tissue architecture, you can call it whatever you want, but the main idea of STAR concept was always to be tooth supported, to be in the highest level of precision. So even if you have to remove all the teeth, always try to keep at least 3 teeth. It's very important. So one of the first cases with that idea was this lady who was coming to the office with a perioterminal upper jaw. And before I started, I extracted all the teeth. I was not, in this patient, it was not the idea to go immediate loading because she didn't want to have too much costs. But I removed all the teeth except 3. So removed all the teeth except these 3. We kept 2 molars and a lateral. If you have this situation, it's very easy to match and it's very easy to make guided surgery. Why? Because you is tooth supported. So what we did, we scanned. It was the very first case we did like this. We scanned the case. We used the removable denture scan. You see it was even not in color. It was just in exocut. We planned the implants following always the same, 2 implants on the central, 2 on the canine, 2 on the premolar. And we designed the temporary bridge up front, just to see if it would work or would not work. It was just a test. It was 2016, 2017. And we designed the bridge up front. And the guide was designed to support it. We placed 6 implants and we tried to put the bridge in. So you see it's a guide, open guide, teeth supported. So now the question is, you have one side like the 22nd quadrant who don't have a tooth. So this side you have to start the last one. You always have to start in between 2 teeth. So it's like a Kennedy class 1. It's just next to the 12 you have to place the implants. So we place the implants. It's a temporary bridge made up front, only PMMA, not metal, nothing special, and a guide who was tooth supported. We went even flapless. We just drilled the implants flapless. We placed the implants. We adapted the bridge in the mouth. We put it in the mouth. It was not very easy because we had no idea how to position the guide, but we pushed a lot of tissue. The plane of occlusion was not perfect. The midline was okay. And this was the situation just after surgery. You see, the midline is not perfect, but it was quite okay. The plane of occlusion was not perfect, but everything integrated well. We took our impressions. You see the papillas are okay. A long time ago, it was analog impressions, analog bite registration. It was a temporary bridge. I think it was one of my first monolithic zirconia at that time. Doesn't look very nice, but the tissue reacts very well. The tissue reacts very well on the PMMA, and it was one of the first cases I did like this. So look at the tissue. Papilla is very nice. Papilla are in front. Very high papilla, very nice papilla. So I was quite happy at that moment. Looks like this, nice tissue. The bridge, you see the midline now is better, the plane of occlusion, but still it's not the most beautiful one I've ever made. Looks like this at 5 years, everything went well, everything goes well, but okay, it is what it is. At 2 years, looks like this. She's not the best brusher. So now 2019, and next step, doing it was with a guy with remaining teeth. So we had Mark coming, and his teeth were too mobile in the upper jaw. Of course, we removed the wisdom tooth in the lower jaw, and all the teeth were mobile. The perio said, yes, we did the maximum we can do, but the upper jaw is lost. The lower jaw is very nice. You see the patient is brushing like hell, very well. So we decided in this case to go to design of the smile design. So we see those are the teeth. Upper jaw will be removed. We decided to keep some teeth to support the guide, so you can always work like this. So digitally, we said we're going to go to an immediate loading. We're going to remove all the teeth, and we plan the implant. So we kept this tooth, we kept this tooth, we kept an anterior one, we kept a lateral one, and we kept a molar one. So it's a little bit more. So even if you have 4 or 5 teeth you can support, it's even better than 3, of course. The 3 is the minimum. So digitally, we said we're going to keep these teeth to support our future guide and plan the implants wherever we want, like this. It will be the guide design. So, but before we go further, we want to have a sort of smile design. So what you're going to see, we do a smile design, and we give some options. And we said to the patient, or we keep the dimension of the teeth and we make them shorter, or we keep the length of the teeth and make them wider. So a little bit depending on what you prefer. Of course, in Europe, we like much more the middle one. In the US, so maybe they like the bigger ones. For me, it's a little bit too big. So we went for the middle design. Shorter teeth, same width of the teeth. So, okay. We went there. The bridge was made up front. We make digital wax up. The bridge was made. And like we know, the bridge is accurate but not precise. So the holes are a little bit bigger. So we make the holes bigger, approximately 1.5 millimeter. And what did we do? We did extractions, except the 4 teeth that we wanted to keep to do the guide. We place the guide, and now it's important, as you see in this picture, to place the first implant next to a tooth in a position where the guide is more stable. You see no anchor pins, no horizontal pins. No horizontal pins. Why? Always, if you put a horizontal pin in the anterior zone, the guide will move in the back. So when you put the pin in the anterior zone, the guide will be clicking in the back. So you will always have a discrepancy on the molars. Of course, it's plastic. You can push it and you can close your eyes. But if you put the pins, it will always have a problem in accuracy. So it's why, for me, the best anchorage of the guide is the first implant. So when it's tooth supported, it's like you do just a single implant. I place the first implant next to a tooth. And I place it with a driver who screw it in on the implant, and I will screw in the implant and the driver to stabilize the guide in verticality. So once the first implant is placed, this guide cannot move anymore. And if you look to the right picture, you see in the back, on the back molar, the guide is fitting perfectly on all the teeth. So you know, if the first implant is in, the guide is very, very stable, and you can just close your eyes and go. But still, I prefer to go with 3 implants also, star. So I will place always implants next to the tooth first, just to be sure that my guide is in the most accurate way. I place an implant in the next to the lateral, I place an implant next to the molar and next to the central. So once the 3 or 4 implants are placed, one by one, now once 4 implants are placed, you can go with the other implants much faster. So when we placed all the implants, we place the final abutments. The final abutments are always multi-unit like abutments of 2 millimeters. So I will always go with the same implants. And we torque everything. We place the implants one by one. All implants are in very well, very stable. Very important to know is with my assistant Michiel that the left side of the patient is better to use the left hand. It's much easier than using the right hand, because if you go into the right hand to the left side of the patient, you will have more distortion of the drill, and you will hear that. So it's better sometimes to go with your left hand. Once all implants are in place, all the abutments are placed, you can do bone graft, tissue graft, whatever you want. At that time, I used a lot of PRF, so I used everything PRF to close all the holes. And I put my temporary bridge. And when I saw this bridge, I said, doesn't look bad, but doesn't look like what I planned. I planned the bridge, and it looks, I don't know for you guys, but for me, the impression when I saw this, it's like I had to push the bridge deeper. It looks like they are too long. And if you see lateral, you see that the occlusion on the molar in the back is not occluding. So it means that like I have a bite race, and I don't know how it come. I could not understand why. I did everything up front, the implant guides were placed, the bridge fitted perfectly, and still the midline is quite good, but I couldn't understand why the bite trace was there and why my tissue shaping was a little bit different. If you go post-processing, you see from the beginning till the end, you see that the teeth are the same length, and I planned them shorter. So it means that something went wrong with the positioning of the bridge. So we did everything guided, the bridge fitted perfectly on the cylinders, but still it was not the correct position. It made me think. Healed like this was not too bad at 2 months, really not too bad. The tissue looks like this, it's okay. We may take an intraoral scanner to have the bite registration, that's why I like to keep the molars. We take also an analog impression because fully digital scanning doesn't work quite well for full arches till now. Till now, I always take an analog impression for my full arches or photogrammetry that we are testing. And we do the intraoral scan for the bite, and we take the impression to glue in the tie bases in the full zirconia bridge. So we take the impression for the precision and the intraoral scans for the occlusion. And it was a trying. Looks okay, looks quite well. We make a full monolithic bridge. So in the back it's monolithic. In the anterior zone we make it a cutback. And this is the bridge that we want to place. They look like this. And at the end we end up with quite big teeth. The patient is very happy, but we end up with an FP2, and maybe we could have an FP1. The patient is very happy. We are 8 years later on the road, and everything looks good. But it makes me still thinking, well, what went wrong in this immediate loading? And it's always the same issue. The issue is always the same, is a transition between surgery and the prosthetic phase. It's always this one. And now I'm going to present you the paper we wrote about star concepts together with Xylat and published in 2022 about the real star concept, how we call it in the article. It's a paper. In fact, it started a couple of years ago when I did the live surgery in Paris together with Karim Dada, and we wanted to go to the live surgery, and Karim asked me, do you want to have a paper about this? And we start writing the star concept at that moment. And I will present you the case of the publication. It's Guy's Mountain. Mountain is now took his shit together, let us say it like this. He's now a nurse. He has 2 children, treating very well. But it's very important to understand that patients like this who want to have implants, they have to own them. So I mean, they have to clean their teeth. And when I did a live surgery course here, one of the assistants was me, and he said, yes, I know this guy. He was to the University of Ghent 2 years ago. He was like this. It was Mountain before he went to university, before he met his girlfriend, and before he wanted to save his teeth. So this was the real situation. And if you see now like this, you see it's a dramatic improvement of the teeth. But still, it's too painful. He cannot brush. Everything is painful. So we decided at that moment to go to a full arch upper and lower. Look like this. You see, it looks like this. He quit smoking. He quit everything. So it's a much better movement. So I will explain you step by step the star concept for the upper jaw. It's the same little bit as the case before. So we're going to remove all the teeth of the upper jaw, we remove all the teeth of the lower jaw, but in 2 sessions. So we're going to start, of course, the diagnosis and treatment options we have. And let's see how predictable we can be in this type of cases. So what do we need? What changed? I explained to you that we have a tooth-supported guide. So the first surgical guide is always tooth-supported. But we're going to add some anchor pins, 3 buccal and 3 palatal. And after this one, we're going to design the bridge with a second guide on top of this bridge with the same reference of anchor pins. So the pins going to be also in the buccal. It's a second guide. So in fact, you have 2 guides, one surgical guide and one prosthodontical guide. The prosthodontical guide is going to fit over a temporary bridge, and the reference between the surgical guide and the prosthodontical guide are the anchor pins. And I'm going to show you step by step. So this is the only way to put a temporary bridge in an accurate way. It was something we wanted to see how we can do it. So we started. So in fact, you have a model with 3 teeth. You have the guide supported teeth. You have a temporary bridge made up front. And to put this bridge in a correct 3D position, you need a second guide. And the second guide will fit over the temporary bridge, and you will refine the 3 of the 6 palatal pins. So step by step, what do you need? Again, you have to make the patient digital. You need clinical pictures, you need a cone beam, and we need intraoral scans. These are 3 things you really need for this type of cases. And we upload everything into SmileCloud. It's a software. You can do guide design, review tool. I cannot work without the SmileCloud software. So this is data journey. I will not go too much in detail. If you really want to know all the detail moving, you can read the paper that we wrote. But the fact is that you have first designed the implants. You place the implants. In the software. You export the implants from the software. You put them in Exocad. You design the temporary bridge, and you re-import everything again in the planning software of the implants. You design a second guide. That's in the big lines how we have to do the data manipulation. But it's very well explained in the article. So this one you can read if you. So the first pronotal challenge is the design of the shapes. So you're going to start with a picture, and you're going to design a shape of the teeth. So for this one also, I'm going to use SmileCloud. It's a cloud-based software where we're going to add all the files of the patient in the GDPR improvement, and we're going to do a smile design. In fact, it's a little bit a real-time or very fast DSD. But I like SmileCloud because it's also a communication app in a STL reviewer. You can now do the mock-up yourself, but it's a very easy way to do a smile design. So you start with a smile design with the end in mind. For the upper jaw, once we know what you want to do, we're going to plan the implants and the anchor pins. How I plan my implants, for me, I always going for 8 implants in the upper jaw and 6 in the lower jaw. Why 8? Because then you can go segmented, and I will explain you later on. You can make 3 or 4 bridges. You don't have to make one full arch. But more important is the fact that you don't have to charge all of the 8 of them. You can do whatever you want, because people say 8 is too expensive. We are making it expensive. We can change the implants or charge the implants as much as we want. Once you plan the implant, you plan the palatal pins. This one was the first one we recorded for the article, but it's stupid because we only use 2 palatal pins and they are parallel. It's very stupid of us. So you need to have at least 3 in the palatal and 3 in the buccal to have a very nice pressure. 2 parallel is not so a good idea. But now you see we planned everything, and on top of the temporary bridge, we're going to design a second guide to place the bridge. In fact, we have this one. We have the one surgical guide. Like explained before, tooth supported, at least 3 teeth, where in the palate you have the anchor pins and in the buccal you have the anchor pins. Then you have a second guide who's sitting over the temporary bridge, and you see that we have the same palatal pins. So that because you have to remove the remaining teeth, we need some reference between the surgical and prosthodontical part, and that's the reason we're going to use the anchor pins. What we're doing for the surgery is exactly the same. It was done with my brother Francis Tankov, a good friend of mine, and we did the same. We planned the implants, but we kept 4 teeth in this one. We kept the molars and the 2 laterals to support the guide, and we start drilling the implants one by one. So we started like this. So you always start between 2 teeth, always the bone mill, never forget the bone mill, and always the first small drill. You see, it's always first having the sleeve touching before you turn. Sleeve touching, drilling. Always like this. Always fully guidance, and you go step by step. You can skip one drill, but you cannot skip them all. And you see, I'm drilling the first implant in the same vertical way. And you can see that now I'm going to make it a little bit wider, and I will place the implant now. The implant will go in a vertical way. So it means when it goes in a vertical way, you know that the guide will be stable. It's a very open guide. It's not a tree-shaped guide. These guides are open guides, and I'm going to place the implant with the driver who's screw it like this. And the implant is in, don't force it. And now you have visual control on the rest of the teeth to be sure the guide is seated. I don't even have to hold the guide anymore. And now you're going to place all the implants. You place 4, you can go them one by one, you can place them all together. That's whatever you want. I always say a guide is not your BFF. It's not brainless, it's not fast, it's not fatless, but it can become your best friend. So the same for the 2 anterior ones. We're just going to place them one by one, always the same, always guidance, you see? Yep, guidance with the sleeve. When by hand is going by hand, Now you just take the driver and you turn. So you have a very nice primary stability. The same with the second one. The implants are in. And once the implants are in, only then you can remove. No, I have to remove it to anterior ones because I could not reach. And you're going to drill in the pellets the pins because now you know the reference of the guide and the pins are the same. So now you just drill at that moment. Only at that moment you will drill the pins at the end, not in the beginning. You can do it in the beginning, whatever you want, but if you do at the end, you know that the pins will always be in the same reference than the in-placed implants. And now you take a second guide, the bridge goes in with the template cylinders, and once you can find the pins in the anterior one again, like this, and I like the pins screw retained pins, so screw it in, and it will not move anymore. And you can do the pickup of the cylinders from the bridge. And now I do it with flow. I pick up the cylinders with the temporary bridge with flow. I will show you later on, you will see. The pickup of the cylinders with flow, and we play the temporary bridge in the mouth. Easy. For the lower jaw, it's going to be the same. It's faster. We're going to plan the same. We're going to plan 3 buccal pins, and sometimes we plan them also lingual. It depends a little bit of the case. So here we're going to do the same. We plan the bridge up front, as the design of a temporary bridge. That's the mock-up that we had. And there's a prosthodontical cage with the 3 pins, and it is the surgery we want to do. We want to place the implants, the bridge guided also. So what we do, we keep 3 teeth, you extract them all except 3. You plan the implants, do the surgery at traumatic extractions, bone mill, always the bone mill, very important to have a good bone mill. I'm going to remove the teeth traumatically, and you go the guidance, like I showed you in the upper jaw. Just drill by drill, go one by one, you clean everything, open guides, and you place the implants. You see you have very, very clear visuals on the teeth. It's why I like this type of guides. I don't like tree-shaped guides who are covering the full teeth because you don't see anything. You're not sure it's sitting. This one you see that the guide is very well seated on the tooth. You see it in this video. You see it's not moving. And once the first implant is in place, you put the guide down and the guide is stabilized. And you see with your eyes the precision fit. You place all the implants you want to place one by one, and when it's ready, you see one implant is in, and you can see that the guide in the contralateral side is sitting perfectly. If the guide is sitting like this, you know that the implants are in the highest level of accuracy. You are within the 1.5 millimeter. Is what you want to have. At that moment, we're going to place, when all the implants are in, we're going to place the final abutments. The final abutments for me are always 2 millimeters. I never use 1 millimeter multi-units, always 2 millimeter multi-units. I place them all. I put the temporary cylinders in, the bridge goes in, and to secure the bridge, the lower bridge, we put the pins, and when the pins are in, we are sure the temporary bridge in the correct 3D positioning. Like this. The bridge is in, the 3 pins are in, so the bridge is seated in the correct 3D positioning. So we know that the occlusion and things like this will be good. It's just after surgery, the bridge is in, the surgery takes 3 hours. Does the X-ray after the surgery. I always try to keep a molar, just for the proprioception. I really like to keep a molar in the back. And this one is the planning, and this one is the execution. You see, we are much closer to the planning than before because we have a second prosthodontical guide. And this is the tissue you receive after 2 months when you remove the bridge. Very thick tissue. We are going to try to compensate the shrinkage by design, and you see how it looks like. Very nice tissue, lower and upper jaw. This is the tissue, the reaction of the tissue to a PMMA was made in the mouth with the pickup with flow. You see a lot of nice tissue, nice papillas, pink, no bleeding, and we don't remove the multi-unit abutments anymore. So we have 2 types in this type of system. We have the connect, it's a very narrow implant, you see it here, and you have multi-units who are a little bit wider and have a vertical component. So in the lower jaw, I always use multi-units, and in the upper jaw, I like to use smaller abutments, like the micro abutment of the nano abutment of Neodent or multi-units or abutments who are 4 millimeters instead of 4.8. Because we have to understand biomechanics of implants, I like also to have more implants. So because we only have very narrow screws to support everything, so it's a little bit a miracle if you place 4 implants that these tiny screws can withhold all the pressure. That's why I like to have at least 6 implants. I don't like to go with only 4. I do on 4, but I try to avoid it. I prefer to go on 6 or on 8. That's for me. So we take the inflations and the scans of these implants, the tissue. We take again the reality. You can do it in an occludator or in a digital one. That's up to you. It's whatever you prefer. We mill it out of zirconia, and again, we use it full monolithic, except the buccal parts. We're going to stain them. Looks like this with the Exocat project, monolithic zirconia. That's why we need a physical model to glue in the temporary cylinders or the tie bases. That's very important to have a physical model to glue them in. And it is the base of the bridge. So it looks like this. There's the lower jaw. Lower jaw, we're going to FP3. It's very, very rare that we can do FP1 upper and lower jaw. It's very, very rare. If you go to an FP3 in the lower jaw, it looks like this. And the upper jaw, we go to FP1. It looks like this. It's fully monolithic. It's totally stained, only in the buccal, just to have the little bit more aesthetics. That's mountain now. You see how it's reacting, how it smiles. That's the final bridge in the mouth. Looks like this. Very easy steps. The tissue immediately after placement. Looks like this now after 4 years, or 6 years, sorry. So already from 2018, so time flies. 7 years, oof, time flies. And looks like this at 7 years, or 3 years, this one. The tissue looks like this when I remove the bridge at 3 years, just to have a quick view of the tissue. Tissue is very stable, very thick, looks nice. Papillas are okay. We didn't have papillas in the beginning, so we cannot expect papillas from 7 millimeters nowadays. But you see it's fitting quite well. It's FP1. Now I think it's 8 years down the road. 4 years. I can have it for 8 years. Papillas are still improving, so it looks nice. The before, after, and final. So I think we achieved what we promised him. Of course, some limitation of this technique is the fact that you only adapt this one on dental patients, the real star. Now we have some evolutions. You can see it on my Instagram how we manage fully dentures or bone resection, but at that time it was only tooth supported. The best thing is to achieve at least 5 teeth, so the matching is better, and it's even much better if they are triangular support. And be careful with the grade 3 mobility of the teeth, because if the teeth are moving too much, they have no reliable position, so you don't know how you scan it. So be careful with this one. And what's important also is how to develop the Pontics for these type of cases. You have to understand that for an FP1 or FP3, it's day and night difference. So you have to know that for an FP1, you have to all the designs like Ramon Gomez Meda described them. So what you can have is like a modified overweight Pontics and overweight Pontics. You can never ever use saddle ridge slabs or modified ridge slabs. Never put the bridge on top of the tissue. The people cannot clean it, and you will have a nightmare. The hygienic Pontic, it's nice for temporaries, conical, very conical. You can use it also in temporaries when you do just the extraction. But for the final bridges, you can never ever use saddle ridge or modified ridge slab. Maybe for temporary, you can maybe use it, but in full arch, at the end, even for the Pontic, if you cut out the Pontic a lot before you do the loading because you didn't open the tissue enough, for the final ones, it's unacceptable. You cannot make saddle ridge or modified ridge. Always have them overweight. Modified overweight of overweight Pontics. And the reason we like to segment the final bridge is the fact that I had a lot of fractures. A lot of full arch fractures. It's one of the reasons I like to place 8 implants. Most of the time, the implants are placed 2 centrals, 2 canines on the 4 and on the 6. That's the new algorithm we do, because I had a lot of fractures. And I was even on that side that I was saying to the patient, I will place the bridge, I will screw it in, and you will hear a tack. That's normal. And you will have 2 parts. It's normal. I explained it like this to the patient. Till I had a dentist who had a full arch bridge. I screwed in, and he said, tack on the wrong position. Now, what's the worst position possible? is just before the last implant. Why? Because it's a multi-unit. It turns. So we had to remake the full bridge because it broke on the wrong spot. From that moment, I think it was 2020, all my bridges are segmented. Another reason is for the lower jaw, especially if you place 6 implants and especially in behind the foramina, like I do, is the fact that you have a huge deformation of the lower jaw. If you open your lower jaw, the lower jaw deforms like 420 microns. So it means that if you put a full arch in the lower jaw and the patient opens, sometimes they have headaches. If they have headaches when you put a full arch in the lower jaw, you have to think about the fact that it's possible because you blocked the lower jaw. And when you have sarconia, pity I didn't have the movie about it, the patient was opening the mouth like this, I said, tack! This bridge broke in the middle. So I said, perfect segmentation, and he didn't have any headaches anymore. So you can segment them how you want. Different positioning segmentation. You can have it one part, you can go behind the canines, you can go in between, you can go everywhere, you can segment as much as you want or how you want. But the thing I can tell you is about the fact that if you segment, it's always better to have one segmentation. 2 segmentations are better than 1 segmentation. 3 segments are better than 2 segments. And 4 segmentations is what we prefer to do. Make 4 partial bridges. It's the best in accuracy. Why? If you have some misfits in the scanning, you can always have contact points. And the contact points we can trim. We are dentists. So I like to go to 8 implants and make 4 small bridges nowadays. Once you deliver everything, and as the last part, it's about prevention. I think it's very important. It's very nice to show a lot of cases, but the most important thing is how can we last them for long, long years? Because how long can it go? I don't know. Nobody knows. So prevention is the main idea. To explain a patient, you have to clean it. You need tissue. If you don't have ketonized tissue, it's a nightmare. I use the 4-3-2 approach, like Marta Revelon described in her article Together at 12. Is the fact that the first year, the patient will come 4 times a year. The second year, the patient will come 3 times and everything goes well. The third year, she will come 2 times. And every year, we remove lower jaw full arch bridges. Every year, I remove it to clean. Lower jaws are always a garbage. Always. Even if you do it over it, even if you make it full zirconia, if you remove it, it's full. Upper jaw, they are clean. Lower jaw is a nightmare. So just to be on the safe side, this is not a star concept. It's 3 teeth, but in the wrong positioning. So the main message is, if you cannot do a surgery free-handed, don't do it with a guide. If making a guide makes you life so hard, like in this case, where you don't know how to make a guide, go free-handed. Free-handed is still a valuable option, but you are not as precise or accurate as with a guide. You cannot make your pros up front, but sometimes we have to go with free-handed. It's not something bad to go free-handed, because sometimes we think if you don't do guides, you are not cool, you're not in. No. The cases you want to do with a guide, you should be able to do it free-handed. If you cannot do it free-handed, don't do it with a guide. Biggest concern you have to make. Like this, you have to do the surgery free-handed. And I think I'm just in 1 hour, just very ready. I just want to thank you for the attention. If you want to see some lectures from me, you can go to our website from our education center or follow me on Instagram. So voila. I don't know if you have questions or not, but I'm still here, so I'm still listening. It's up to you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your time and effort. We truly appreciate that. We have some question. How can I use surgical guide with thin bone when bone expansion is needed?
You can do it Versa drills, like
Yes.
you do it without a guide. You have Versa drills who are guided in the sleeves, so you can do it guided with Versa drills. It's not an issue. I do it also.
Without guide, freehand?
No, with the guide. You have guided Versa drills.
Okay.
So it depends on the system you're using, but you can order Versa drills repeating the sleeves.
Okay. What is your opinion on custom scan bodies? that enhance tracking and reduce distance between implants.
Like the Apollo or the Nexus, for me doesn't make sense because I place more implants. And the accuracy is the same. I used it a couple of years ago, but I don't use it. I have them. They are in my closet. I have the Nexus one. I have the Apollo ones. I even have a new one from Straumann. But I don't do all on 4. So I have quite a lot of implants. I only have 1 or 2 Pontics. So scanning is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is for me the accuracy of the scan, the model. So for me, if you scan or you work with a metal bar,
okay,
or if you want to go monolithic zirconia, I take a conventional impression.
Okay. What is your opinion on using the side cut sleeve in posterior region, or how to manage limited mouth opening?
Honestly, the lateral sleeves I use for materialize, I don't miss it. So if you have reduced mouth opening, I always say if you can scan it, you can drill it. If you have the mouth opening to put the scanner in, you can drill it. If you cannot enter the scanner, you cannot drill it. But then it's very difficult to go with a guided surgery. So if you can scan it, you can drill it.
Okay. Do you recommend it to do direct connection zirconia on multi-unit abutment or not? If I take an IPG scan.
For me, it's like I don't have the good screws yet. I tried a lot of screws. I tried the Powerball, the Rosen, the Vortex, and now I'm testing the DES screws. It's very difficult to mill these connections. So we have a big time with the dental lab to scan, to mill the internal connection of these balls. So if printing is very nice, I use all these type of things for my temporaries. So when I do a second temper prototyping, I don't use tie bases. I go direct to implant with a special screws. But for zirconia, mixed feelings. I don't know. I don't know. I tried it, but it's not like I can say yes, do it all the time.
Okay. What do you use? Why do you use surgical guide made of metal material?
I don't use it. That was for playing.
Okay.
Do you prefer?
Yes. Do you prefer a flap or flapless guide?
Always depend on what you want to do. If you want to do bone resection, you need to flap. If you want to do FP1, you cannot flap. FP1, if you flap, you kill the papillas. It's finished. In fact, FP1s are flapless surgeries.
Okay. How do you decide whether to use all on 4 or on 6 or on 8?
The bone. I always try to go for all on 8. Always. If I don't have the bone, I can go to all on 6. And I think let's just say I do 100 full arches a year. And of these one, I only have 1 all on 4, is just to avoid sinus floor elevations.
Okay. You say you prefer multiple segmentation rather than one segmentation. But what about biomechanical force distribution? Is it better in one segmentation or not?
But the distribution for what? What do you do if you only have one side of the mouth with implants? I don't see any difference. It's like a small bridges. I trust more three teeth on 2 multi-units than 12 teeth on 4 multi-units. And there is still, for me, there's no evidence that you need cross-arch printing nowadays.
Okay, dear. Now we finished. Thank you, Professor. You have delivered an outstanding lecture filled with valuable insight and expertise. Thank you for your time and effort. We truly appreciate it. It's an honor for me and for my followers. Thank you, dear.
Take care. Good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye.